Hello everyone and welcome to Project Insights Agile Practice webinar. The topic for today is taking your enterprise to a lean and agile power. Just a few things to note before we get started. All participants will be put on mute. However, any questions you have are more than welcome. Please go ahead and type those into your question box, which you can find on your GoToWebinar dashboard. We'll try to answer all of your questions during the session, but if we can't, we'll make sure to get to you through email. And also please note that this webinar recording and slides will be available within our Project Insight community, and I will also follow up in an email with this recording and the slides as well. This training is valid for 1 PDU free of charge. However, you must be in attendance for the full session. PDUs will be sent by the end of today. So please hold off on emailing me about your PDU until then. For all other PDU information, please visit our PI community. Type in PDU in the search, and you will find the PMI rules in an article called Webinars and PDUs. My name is Denise, and I'll be your moderator for today. I'm on the marketing team here at Project Insight. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please feel free to reach me at denise.rodriguez@projectinsight.com. If you're not already familiar with Project Insight, we're a cloud-based project management solution. We work with two kinds of companies, those that are rapidly growing and need to scale the way they are managing their projects, and those who want greater visibility across their project portfolio, want more insight into the workloads of their resources, and want a better way to collaborate on their projects among team members. If any of these sound familiar to you and you would like to learn more, please feel free to contact us via phone, email, or you can request your demo at projectinsight.net. We'd like to give a warm welcome to our presenter, Dr. Dave Cornelius. Dr. Dave is an experienced IT and business professional and a global recognized lean and agile catalyst who empowers others to achieve their very best. He specializes in coaching, training, leading, and co-located and distributed teams to deliver quality innovations from concept to cash. Dave also has held several leadership roles where he helped transform IT into a partner who other groups within organizations. Good morning, Dave. I'm sorry, and he is also the founder of the 5 Saturday program and leads the group's leadership council. That's awesome. So good morning, Dave. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Denise. It's always good to be here. Always good to see you. I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing awesome. For a Thursday, we're getting closer to the weekend, so thank you so much for joining us.
Anytime, anytime.
All right. So with that said, I'll just hand over presenter rights to you and take it away.
All right. Good morning, everyone, wherever you are. I'm going to give a quick shout out to Ivan from Mexico. I heard he clicked in. Welcome, Ivan or Ivan. So we always start off our webinar by answering questions from the previous webinar. So May 19th was the last time we had a session. And so we had a couple questions, and the first one is from Linda C. And they wanted to, and our last webinar was on coaching and mentoring, coaching Agile leaders. So her question was, could this technique be used for coaching and mentoring for individual job performance? If so, could you suggest some readings and examples of formats to follow? So I just want to respond and say that the approach that I used is really based on my observations and experiences. I wrote a white paper with the same subject of coaching Agile leaders, and I plan to make that available. So I'll give that to Denise, and hopefully there's some references in that writing that you could use, and that would help you to go forward and get some insights or at least some understanding and knowledge of how do you use this technique. We also have some training that's available that you could use the concept that I provided as well. Now the other question is from Dolores P. And her view is, what advice would you offer to someone wanting to enter the Agile or Scrum field? And as first steps, example, heavy math background. My simple recommendation is that you just attend a certification class for Scrum, the CSM training, or PMI ACP, or even the Scale Agile framework. And yeah, your background does not require a degree in math. You just have to have a heart and a passion for collaboration and helping people to solve business problems. And the third question was from Arul, and his question was, do we deliver value to customers after each sprint? I.e., do we deliver workable feature product to customers after each sprint? Well, sure. The emphasis is to deliver value at the end of each sprint that can be either a full or partial contribution to a feature or product. That is always the focus, is to deliver value to customers, and that's one of the great emphasis of agility. And I hope these questions or the answers to these questions are helpful, so in the future you could be as engaged as you need to, because if you ask me questions, I'll do my best to respond in the next webinar. So we have our topics today. It's going to be interesting. I created a business case about this company. It's called Zappatos. And Zappatos is the Spanish word for shoes. And so we'll talk about that business case and how we're going to walk them through the process of becoming more lean and more agile at the enterprise level. There are several topics. We'll talk about this concept of objectives and key results, which we call OKRs. We'll give you some insights into House of Lean and lean thinking. Look at some agility practices, and then we'll have some Q&A at the very end, as we normally do. So let's talk about the learning objectives. So at the conclusion of this presentation, we want to make sure that you could use OKRs to measure success and gain insights into an agile transformation. And so that's why we created this business case, or I created this business case to give you a perspective of what is it like if you were a large organization and you would like to go through this transformation. So let me introduce you to Zappatos, the Zappatos business case. So Zappatos is a traditional shoe manufacturer in Compton and East Los Angeles. They're really experienced with lean manufacturing and want similar value in software. They have a project management office that practices traditional project management. They have a patented technology to enable customers to create custom shoes at home. They have created this holographic images of shoes designs which are available on mobile devices, and this allows their customers or distributors to use 3D printers to create shoes, and they just have this great need to be more nimble and to maintain market lead. So this should give you an image of the type of organization who really wants to be progressive and really some great advantage of what agility could bring to their organization, and the same thing with lean. So one of the key things, they selected the Scale Agile framework, SAFe. And so as part of that, they looked at the benefits of going with this Agile framework for a large organization. And so the key things that they picked out is that, oh yeah, we could align our goals throughout the organization. Because there's an emphasis for the House of Lean and lean thinking, there's a great focus on quality. We're looking at how do we fulfill and meet our customer demand and really have an unimpeded flow as we build products and get products to market. Great things is, as we know, as you have a large enterprise organization, you have cross-functional teams, and so how do we deliver frequent value to our customers as well as to the stakeholders of the organization? So in this transformation journey, Zappatos are looking for different benefits, and they figured that the Scale Agile framework will help them get there. But to get there, one of the key things that the leaders, as Zappatos wanted to do, they wanted to have some measurable objectives, things that they could say, well, here are some objectives, and how do we measure that? And so this is a concept called OKR, and it's commonly used by companies like Google to force their employees to be more innovative and to find ways to get much better. So they wanted to do measurements on a quarterly or a program increment boundary. So every 3 months, they wanted to look into the work that they committed to and see exactly what the outcome is. It has both constructs of qualitative and quantitative results, so you could validate progress. And for qualitative, it's really more of an inquiry around using more human language as opposed to quantitative, where it's more numerically measured or more statistically driven. So let's look at what OKR gives us. So it gives us both the quantitative and qualitative measures. And as we look at that qualitative, so we use that to describe the objective that the organization wants to achieve. And with quantitative, we said we're going to list at least 3 key measures that corresponds directly to the objective stated, the qualitative objective stated. And we wanted to know the confidence level. Well, is this we have 1 as low and 10 as high, so 5 would be somewhere in the middle. So this gives us a way to really begin to define the outcome of our transformation, our Agile journey. So let's look at an example for objectives and key results. So we could say one of the objectives is to select the outcome with the highest value and priority. So one of the key results, or the key results that we would use to measure that, we could say that risk is low during deployment and implementation. Right? And that could be just nothing more than a binary check. Risk is low, yes or no. Features are produced as committed and delivered at the end of each quarter. So when we go into the start of each quarter, we make a commitment to get some work done, and at the end of the quarter, we go and validate, well, are they done? And it could be a simple count. I had 5 going in, and at the end of the quarter, I have 3 finish. So we have 3 of 5. Or something like 60%. And I think that if you are traditional project management, you may think of that in the context of earned value. So I just wanted to throw that out there for those of you who are traditional PMPs. So the metrics are validated by teams at the end of each quarter. So whatever metrics that we have set up to look at risk, to look at committed work, we could go back and make sure that those things are validated by the teams. And so we have a confidence of 6. So that gives us one example of how we could leverage OKRs to measure the outcome. But let's look at another one that we wanted to make. Zappatos wanted to make sure that they engage customers early for feedback. And so the key results that they're looking for is, maybe 100 customers review and provide feedback for each feature at the end of each quarter. And then each feature customer feedback prioritized from low to high. And I have a bugaboo called SDF that I probably did not define, so that's on me. And then so there's a confidence of 7, where they feel very highly that they could get this stuff done. So let's move along to our first engagement question. Right, and so we want to ask, what is the definition of OKR? And so if you guys could come up and answer that question, what is the definition of OKR, that would be really awesome. And so objectives and key results are used by Google to establish challenging goals to pursue. They should be challenging to ensure that teams are seeking ways to improve and create a differentiator. So as you are spending the time answering this question, I think that you also think about how would you use OKRs in your organization going forward? How could you use this to measure some activities that you're working on currently? So why don't we spend this time just giving feedback, what is the definition of OKR, so we could continue on with the progress of this presentation. Good. So 78% believes that OKR stands for objectives and key results, and that's correct. So let's move on to the next slide. as Zappatos goes forward in this Agile transformation, they wanted to set up a series of goals for their team. And so key things that most companies want is to increase the effectiveness and collaboration between team members so that we begin to remove the blockades that really hinders organizations from being very innovative and collaborative. And so teams are empowered to make decisions and create great innovation that helps to meet the needs of our customers. Across the organization, as we want to make sure that we have common goals that are aligned on a quarterly or PI basis. And remember, PI stands for Program Increment. And making sure that team members and everyone involved in the process of building a product or service for our customers have the ability to feel empowered to make decisions and really get to common goals based on whatever is established by the organization. And so the teams are able to define commitments to business goals. And so this is the goals for the team and for their transformation to ensure that they could be extremely successful. But to help them to move along in that line, we want to think of SAFE that gives us the house of lean and lean thinking. And it has basically 4 key tenets to look at. And so the house of lean itself, it talks about respect for people and culture, where people are giving each other the space and the opportunity to feel safe in terms of being able to express their ideas, being able to feel open to share with others without being ridiculed or shut down. The flow is really important in terms of not having impediments to block the teams from being successful in their process. Innovation is highly encouraged in the SAFE space, and to make sure that we're building not only what we call innovation that meets the needs of today, but also disruptive innovation, which may change the whole market space. And there's a constant idea of being focused on improvements. The idea of relentless improvement, which is really synonymous to the idea of continual improvement, constantly working toward getting better always. But also a part of SAFE, SAFE also uses what we call agility practices. All right? And there's 2 key things that SAFE uses, which is Scrum. And I've talked about Scrum before in the past, which would deal with small teams and really practicing adaptive innovation. Every 2 weeks, they're producing some outcome that everyone in the organization has an opportunity to review. They also use the concept of a Kanban, where it's nothing more than a board that people are limiting the amount of work in progress such that we're not working on too many things at the same time. So those are 2 key areas that SAFE leverages, and it's what made this so attractive to Zappatos. That's because as an organization, they wanted to make sure that they have a great culture of collaboration, working with multiple teams from across the organization. And teams takes the time out to just reflect, have retrospectives, discover new learning and opportunities. What went well? What did not go well? How would we like to improve? And just to let you know, we'll go and look at another engagement to ask, so what is the house of lean? What does that really mean? So we're going to ask that question in terms of you guys giving feedback of your understanding of the house of lean. So when I think of the SAFE house of lean and lean thinking, there are actually practices to help the organization create a culture of innovation and minimize waste. When we look for respect for culture and people, this enables a culture of collaboration. And flow advocates for unimpeded execution of teams to produce the highest quality products. Innovation is a cornerstone for product development. And relentless improvement is another way to say continual improvement. It's a way to frequently pursue getting better. So good. The House of Lean really represents all of the above: respect for people and culture, innovation, flow, and relentless improvement. So we're going to move on to what happens in SAFE to enable the organization to go through a transformation. So the first thing we want to do is onboard the leaders, because there's nothing like trying to engage in an initiative where the leaders is not on board. And so one thing that SAFE does is that we have this 2-day training for the leaders. And so we train up the executive, the middle managers, cross-functional team members, and the reason is we want to make sure that they have the concept of the house of lean and lean thinking, where they're respecting the people and culture, that they encourage the flow and try to remove all impediments so that the team could be successful and optimal. And they're all on board about innovation and empowering the team to take that step forward to build the brand new products that will help to delight customers. But one of the other key thing is that it's like sharing a common language of agility. It's nothing like when you walk through an organization and you have the CEO or CIO or COO able to use the same common language that everyone is using in the organization. And then basically it's just really establishing work agreements and knowledge to support the Agile teams, because that's what the teams need and that's what the executives need to provide. Remove impediments, support the team, and allow the wisdom of crowds to really take forward. The other thing that we go forward is that at some point we have to unleash the power of what they call Agile Release Train. And there's a launch. And so we're talking about several Agile teams delivering incremental values. And so there are about 50 to 100 cross-functional team members that's part of Agile Release Train. There's based on a series of rules and systems to really produce functional and quality products. 4 times a year they get together so that we could build that great alignment that most organizations, there's a great envy when you could find that in an organization. Most organization has this great hunger for that. And so teams in the ART or the Agile Release Train are synchronized. They start and finish at the same time. And so I came from an organization not a few months ago where there was like 1,500 people involved in building software as a product for customers. And we would have, an ART planning session with over 200 people representing, roughly about 6 or 7 different products. But it was really interesting and really great that we know that everyone started at a specific date and ended on at a predestined date at all times. We know exactly where everyone was. We know exactly what the objectives were. So it was very clear for us to be able to deliver the greatest value to our customers at any time. But after we're done training up the executives and we're in the process of launching this Agile Release Train, so we're going to create another 3 days of training for the delivery organization. So we will have Scrum Masters and Product Manager or owners, and then so they would go through just 2 days worth of training called a Safe Practitioner or SP. Then for the Product Owner, Product Manager, they go through another 1 day of training so that they could learn more about how do we really describe a product or features of a product such that the teams could understand what to deliver. And so you have this group of people who are well-trained, who have a common language and a common approach to how to solve problems. So let's ask another question as we engage. And we said, well, who's trained to prepare the organization for Enterprise Agile? And so there's a series in there. And so we could just figure out which one, and you guys could give us feedback on that. So a little commentary around, the safe practice of training and getting the organization prepared. So we could say the safe practice encouraged training for individuals and teams involved in the Agile transformation. The goal is to create a culture with common language, values, and principles. Executives are trained to ensure they're able to support the Agile teams. So the whole concept and the context is to ensure that everyone has exactly what they need to be successful in the process. Everyone has the skills and the techniques that are necessary to achieve this goal. So let's see what your responses are so far. That who's trained throughout the organization. I think we were missing F for all of the above. But if someone answered F for all of the above, that would be the correct answer, where Agile makes sure that the executive, product managers, cross-functional team leaders, middle managers, and scrum masters, that they're all trained to make sure that we have a common language and a common way of achieving objectives, which means that we have a common set of values and principles to share across the organization. So in the journey, there's this concept of big room planning. And the whole point of this is to ensure that there's a set of common goals that are shared across the organization. And those are for the people who are involved with building a product or a series of products that are in some way dependent upon each other or have some interplay. So if you could imagine for a minute that you have about 50 to 150 people in one room, and you start that day with the leaders of the organization identifying, here are our key objectives for the next 3 months. And you have people from product management who may come in and give you another perspective of the different things that they're looking for in the product that is correlated, directly related back to the actual goals of the organization that the key leaders just described. And then you have people who are part of the technology team who also stand up and talk about how will that technology support the product or enable the product to deliver those goals. And so you have 3 key areas of the organization sharing this message all at the same time back to the organization, where everyone who's involved with building product or products or services are aware, they understand exactly what that means. Now, in that process, what happens also is that people are broken out into smaller groups. So if there's a series, you think of a scrum team of, let's say, roughly about 10 people. So if you have 150 people showing up at one of these big room quarterly planning meetings, so you have at least 15 teams with a wall, and each team has some work to do. Now that work is defined by the product owner or product manager, and that gives them the set of features that they have to work on. So now the cool thing about Agile is that we encourage self-organization, and with that encouragement, that means that the teams are allowed to work together. Developers, if you're a part of QA, if you're part of some other faction in the team, whatever function that you provide, that you're all working together to define exactly how are you going to approach solving the problem or meeting the objectives of a feature. As you know, in today, or if you're doing software, in most cases, you have software developers writing code and then they throw it over the wall to your QA people, which if you're in QA, you're really upset about that because you only have a small amount of time to really test the work done by the developers. But in this scenario and in this practice, developers and QA people work together along with the product owner and project manager to get a better understanding of what are the objectives of the features, as well as for the developers and QA people to sit down. Even if you have tech writers involved, they're all involved in the same conversation of how long will it take us to get this done. and let's give a rough estimate and go with that. So great alignment as part of big room planning. But the key thing is you want to really maximize ROI for that quarter. If you could have everyone aligned, having the same conversation, having the same understanding about what needs to be done, that makes the organization stronger. And so it's nothing like having face-to-face conversation. So from my experience, we would bring people in from Australia, from Singapore, from South Africa, India, different parts of the United States, Canada, all come together to have this big dialogue about what will we accomplish for the next 3 months. So as you could see, if you could just imagine that we're having face-to-face conversation, that people could realize and understand certain level of dependencies, that system A had to dependence on system B, and the two people who, or the group of people involved in producing system A and B are present. They could go and talk to each other. They could walk over across the room and go, I have a dependency on your CRM system, and I know that you're making a change, so can you, our goal is to have a certain amount of our work completed by the first month of the quarter. So, can we align somehow to make sure that when you're done with your changes, that we could pretty much test together to make sure that nothing is broken. We did not introduce a regression. And so you could see the power of people communicating, people having the opportunity to exchange ideas, or even come up with great new innovation. One of the biggest challenges for most organizations is to get people to walk or to pursue a common direction. If you've been around businesses long enough, you would notice that people are essentially doing their own thing, or they have their own agenda. What big room planning allows within SAFE is for people to come together based on the leaders of the organization saying, this way is north. These are the things that we want to achieve to delight our customers. And you have the product owners supporting that. Well, these are the features that we're going to develop and the goals that we have to meet the high-level objective of the organization. And then you have the IT or the development team. They're saying, like, this is the plans that we have to support that. So as you could see, there's no fracture. We have a coherent message and a coherent approach to solving problems. Key things that derail most products is the fact that we wait too late to identify risks and dependencies. Now, if you could sit in a room and spend time talking about the different risks that you may identify and really have a great open dialogue about that, that really goes a long way. So if something that you're building in product A generates a risk for product B, you could easily see that and have that discussion openly. But the key thing also about big room planning is that there's just a 2-day activity. So at the end of day 1, you have all of these key stakeholders. So you have the CEO, CIO, COO, CMO, and other VPs and other directors coming through to each team, and each team has the opportunity to do a play out or playback of what they have. Essentially, we use the concept of groomed, but it's really their understanding of the work that needs to be done and the plans that they're putting in place to achieve those objectives. So they have a great opportunity to have a face-to-face talk with the leaders of the organization that states, here are the 5 features that we have to accomplish. At the end of day 1, we understand too, here are the challenges that we do have, and we may need your help to resolve some of these things because we have certain impediments, whether it's financial or whether it's another team that they need help with. Maybe it's a partnership. But this is a great open dialogue where that problem can be solved. And so you could see the whole context of lean coming into play, the house of lean and agile practices coming into play right away. The other thing is at the end of day 2, you also have another play out, which is really this is the work that we plan and we're going to commit to get done in the next quarter. People are focused and paying attention to the work that the teams have committed to that they're going to get done for the next 3 months. And 3 months is a very short amount of time. So we have to also be mindful that people are producing based on capacity. No one is telling the team what to do. What happens out of this meeting is that the team, based on capacity, is that this is what we can do based on 10 people or 5 people on this team. And so the organization is open to that type of thinking and that type of approach. You do not have a project manager on top of people telling them that this is what you have to get done now. The teams themselves are saying this is what we commit to, which is a big difference, right? Because if you make a commitment to something, most people try to honor that, and they do the best to meet that objective. So that is really an amazing feat and an amazing opportunity for most organizations. So this is the whole context of big room planning within SAFE. So people have the opportunity to really build alignment across the organization. The organization can maximize the return on investment. You have face-to-face communications between teams to ensure that we could identify risks and dependencies and get everyone heading in a common direction. But the fun thing about once you're done planning, you still need to come back and validate and identify, did you meet the objectives that you set at the start of the quarter? And so SAFE has this thing called these inspect and adapt meeting. And so we're looking at a check-in by the teams in a common meeting with all of the stakeholders that says, like, okay, you plan to do this, so what did you do? It gives us an opportunity to really reflect on the delivery progress by the teams, right, to see exactly what did they do and what was done. And it's not just talk, right? The cool thing is that everyone needs to provide a demo of where they are. So if I wanted to provide a certain interface from my SAP system and some other Salesforce per se CRM system, well, I will demo that back to the stakeholders and say, look, this is the work that we got done. And it's not just stating that, but you could actually physically see it, and people have the opportunities to ask questions about that. If there were any type of quantitative measures that was established, those things could be inspected and reviewed at that point in time. And certainly, things that people care about, well, how much money did we spend in the process? We planned to only spend $500,000. Well, did we do that, or did we spend more? Because one of the key things is that you don't want to leave money on the table because it shows that you really did not have a good enough understanding about what it took to solve the problem financially. But it's also looking at defects. How many defects did we introduce during that period of time? The cool thing is that we get to retrospect and find areas to improve as a team, right? Or even as an organization that we're looking at, like what went well during this last 3 months. How can we get better? So we're always in this continual improvement mode, and so we have this relentless pursuit to get better always. We look at let's figure out the key problems that we've identified, and then figure out how do we solve those? How do we work together as a team to come up with ideas? Because there's nothing like having a group of people who are willing to collaborate and share ideas in a space that it's safe. It's okay to make a statement that's not popular. And so you could think of this happy beehive just buzzing and humming and creating new ideas and really solving problems in a very productive way. And the cool thing is that because we're doing Agile, we have this great backlog of prioritized work to do. So whatever comes out of the inspect and adapt meeting, that goes into the next PI or the next quarterly planning. So when we have the next big room planning, this is, well, look, here are the problems that we just identified that we have to work on immediately. You know, this is one of the highest prioritized item that we have to get done. The teams get together and they work through that problem and ensure that that's done. Stakeholders buy off on it. So that's a very amazing way of how we could take the company of Zappatos through the safe progress where everyone is trained, from the executives to the people working on the teams, to where we get together in a big room and we start planning out the work quarter by quarter. And at the end of each quarter, we get an opportunity to review what we've done and figure out how we could be more productive. So the next engagement question, and this is a simple one of true and false. We wanted to know that if big room planning improves communication and reduces risk. It's a simple true and false question, and I am sure that you guys have been paying attention, so you know the answer to this. So here's another commentary. We say big room planning enables improved communication. Teams reduce risk and identify dependencies that can be negotiated to identify specific dates of when one team needs to produce a value for another team. And you think of the Inspect and Adapt workshop, it helps teams to be transparent with each other and the stakeholders after completing a 3-month quarter or PI. This event enables teams to highlight successes and identify areas to improve. So as you could see, it seems like you guys have been paying attention that 85% of you said it is true. Yes, big room planning improves communication and reduces risk. That is very much so true. So in summary, let's look in summary of what we talked about so far for today. I want to tell you that the Agile transformation journey is a real intentional act. And so the reason I say that is because we're identifying objective and key results to measure outcomes. It's not something that's willy-nilly. It's something that's very intentional where people said, we're going to achieve these 5 objectives, and here's how we're going to measure if we achieve that. We wanted the House of Lean shaping the way we think in terms of really respecting people and culture, which is really important, right, as you work in large organization, because sometimes we can have dominant voices that really just controls the conversation and really demeans people. So that is a real key aspect for collaboration. Flow. There's nothing like flow. You get on a highway where the traffic is just moving along, unimpeded by cars being stopped, or there's too much cars on the freeway or highway at a specific time. It's the same thing with products. As you're building products, if you have no impediments, it's easy for you to allow innovation to flow through the organization out to your customers. Similarly, innovation, you think of that as it being the cornerstone of product development, but also the cornerstone of how you remain competitive in the environment or in the market. And you have this relentless pursuit to improve continually under the House of Lean. But then the cool thing is that we were continually training the organization in Agile practices. It's not like a one-time thing. All right, like I said, you have this happy beehive just buzzing along, learning, growing, being very honest and transparent with each other, helping each other to grow and to become better. And so we leverage big room planning so that we have better communication across the organization where people are allowed to have face-to-face dialogue. And I know in some cases there are times where we have had conversations which were virtual, but we use every type of telecommunication conferencing tools, which gives us video and audio to have those dialogues. So in essence, it's a form of still face-to-face conversation where we have a camera in India or a camera in another part of the world and a camera here in the U.S. having those dialogues, this open dialogue where people are discussing opportunities for growth, opportunities for reducing risk, and to make sure that dependencies are not tanking our projects at the very end. So this is my conclusion of what we've learned today. And so as usual, we always have some time put aside to see if there's anything that I could clarify on the fly, or even if you want to take the time and say, well, maybe I want to think about that. Let me send a question in to Denise, and I will take those questions and provide a response to them at the next webinar in July. I forgot the date of that, but Denise could probably share that with you. So, yeah, let's get some questions. Let's start having a little bit of dialogue around things that I could clarify for you.
All right. Dave, can you provide some tips on how to get the engagement going? Because sometimes you have a lot of people in one room and not everybody's open to sharing ideas and, collaborating. So what are some tips that you can give us for that?
For getting everyone engaged? Well, I
Yes.
mean, there's several tips. So if you have everyone in the same room, the thing is you want to break people down into smaller teams, right? And so actually I'm currently in a strategic planning session for the last 2 days, and we have roughly about 35 people in the room. So the smart things that we did was like, hey, let's break this down into 3 teams of 11 people and give them space so that they could have dialogues around the common objectives that was identified by the executives. And so there are other techniques that you can use as you get into smaller teams. And I haven't introduced this to the audience before, but it's this whole concept of lean coffee. And lean coffee is nothing more than a structured way of how we create time boxes, because in Agile, everything is time boxed. Right? 5 minutes, that's all we have to talk about this certain subject, and then we're going to pivot and do something else. So lean coffee allows everyone in the group to write down their ideas in a post-it note, that maybe a 3x5 or 3x3 post-it notes, and we spend the time to go through each one of those things and give those people a voice to talk about their ideas. And then we vote. We decide, well, do we want to spend more time beyond the 5 minutes that we agree to have for each person to share their ideas? And then we could, at that point, we could really prioritize the things that we think we should really spend the most time on. So that's one technique. And you could go out there and look for lean coffee on Google, and that would give you some ideas of how to throttle and have an agenda-less meeting where everyone has a voice to get people engaged. But you should also be driven by the objectives set by the executives and other leaders in the organization.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see here. Next question. The approach is very good, but either. I'm sorry, this is a weird one. Okay. What is the best practice for presenters' results, good or bad, with the sponsors, and how many times in a month?
I didn't understand the question.
What is the best practice for present results, good or bad, with the sponsors, and how many times a month?
Okay.
Sounds a little vague.
Yeah, the best way to present, the cool thing about Agile is that, and the practice of using Scrum, is that every 2 weeks, at the end of two weeks or 10 days, there's what we call a sprint review. Okay, and at that sprint review, this is where you also have stakeholders who are interested, who could come to those meetings and look at the work that you planned. You made a commitment to get some work done, and look at the fact that if you have finished that work or not, if there are dependencies. And so that's one engagement for the team to play back the outcome of their committed work for that 10 days. We also have this thing called a scrum of scrums, where we have interdependent teams, that meeting is 15 minutes long, where people are talking about the dependencies that you have, but you could also bring key stakeholders to those meetings and share exactly what's going on. But the other thing with Agile is that when you start building that culture of lean thinking, that you have executives who are open to conversations, right? And so one of the key roles is the Scrum Master, who has that opportunity. And you could think the Scrum Master role is a lot different to the project manager, but they still have kind of the same effect where at times they become that voice to communicate things to other areas of the organization. So there's a series of different meetings. And then I talked about the Inspect and Adapt workshop also, where that's a problem-solving meeting where we're describing the work that we've committed, the problems that we have, the risks that we've identified, dependencies, because those are the things that really tank the organization. So you have multiple ways of presenting that, but you also, you still have metrics, right? So that's also available to everyone in the organization so that they could see that as well. I hope that was helpful.
Great, thank you. Okay, we have another one here. It says, my current understanding of Agile approach is that co-location of team members is important. So how about dedicated team members, or how important is it for team members to be 100% dedicated to a single project?
I say it's 100% important. And the reason I say that is that when you have people who are focused on a specific task, you tend to get better results. I know this for a fact that when I'm scattered, and you may even know that whoever asked the questions, or even for the other attendees, is that when you have too many things on your plate, it's really hard for you to focus and for you to provide a great value or attention to details. When you have one specific thing that you focus on at a time to get that done, you have better results. When we think of co-located teams, it really means that people are in a common area working on a common set of goals or project at a time. And so if you have distributed teams, one practice that we do as a coach and leaders in the Agile space and in the organization is that we make sure that the teams and different areas are fully formed. And what I mean by that there's a Scrum Master for that team. So if you have a team in China, there's a Scrum Master in China with that team. You have a team in Australia, there's a Scrum Master with that set of team. If you have the same thing in Singapore or the United States, you have a fully formed team. The only person that gets to be distributed in this context is the product owner, because sometimes the product owner may have at least two different products that they're dealing with, so they have the luxury of having the ability to communicate with teams virtually. And with that, we also encourage using rich media to build films, just like how we do a webinar today. Use your audios, use videos, use whatever techniques you can to make sure that you could communicate the needs of the features so the teams could have a greater understanding. And so that's what agility does in terms of co-location. And plus it builds a great culture in a community locally.
Great, Dave. Thank you. And one last question before we close today's webinar. Is there a business case that confirms that the significant training is cost-effective?
Is there a business? Could you ask that one more time?
Sure. Is there a business case that confirms that the significant training is cost-effective?
Is there a business case?
That you know of?
Yeah, there are multiple business cases. I would say go to the Scale Agile Framework. I think it's scaleagileframework.com. They have a lot of major organizations who have gone through transformations where training is done across the organization. And you could see large organizations who have gone through this transformation and have had great success. And I could just tell you, my last client, when we're talking about their products as software that's sold as shrink-wrap software back to customers, and I could tell you that when you have a software organization that's 1,500 strong and distributed across the world, um, and you have key products that are sold to customers, having everyone trained and having the same language, it's such a big difference. It's like if having someone come to the United States and everything is English only, right? And they speak another language, or going to another country where that language is prominent and you only speak English. So having a common language where people could understand exactly what you're asking for makes a great difference. And we know that just outside of software, outside of product, just in how humans communicate and how we build a cultural environment that's very rich and strong. So yeah, I mean, there's lots of business cases. I mean, look, just look at the universities, right? I mean, there's a reason why we go to college and study a specific discipline. It's because we're all trained in the same way. You know, MBA programs train people in a specific way. Computer science programs train people in the same way. So, I mean, look beyond just agility and the training that comes along with Agile. You know, look outside of the box and see what else is going on in the world, because they're kind of the same, right? I mean, I just want you to think of that in those contexts as well.
Thank you, Dave. All right, so it looks like we're ready for some closing slides.
Yeah, just wanted to share with everyone that learn more about KnowledgeShare. We have lots of things that we could do to help your organization get there. You can go there and look at our blog as well on the KnowledgeShare with Dr. Dave. I normally create thoughts about these webinars on there with additional links, and I know I promised that I'll provide you a link to the Coaching Agile Leaders white paper that I created, so you could have that for free. Also, get out there and buy my book. It's called Transforming Your Leadership Character. Get out to Amazon and buy the book. It's only $10, 2 cups of coffees. The same thing you could find on Amazon is the Agility Leadership Game, which gives you an opportunity to help your leaders in your organization to learn more about lean and agile practices. I run a nonprofit that teaches students and kids agility and innovation with technology. Visit 5saturdays.org. Learn, maybe even spin up a 5 Saturdays program in your neighborhood. We're certainly will be doing that in the next few weeks here in Los Angeles and Costa Mesa, California. I also do a podcast where we provide many insights by having conversations with different industry experts. So you could go to grokshare.com, but you could also find KnowledgeShare with Dr. Dave on iTunes and also on Google Play and as well as Spotify. And visit our website at www.knowledgeshare.org or send us an email at customercare@knowledgeshare.org, or just get into Twitter and do @KnowledgeShare. I think, Denise, it's all yours.
Thank you, Dave. All right, guys. So to earn PDUs, you will automatically receive your PDU certificate via email towards the end of today. If you have any questions, comments, feedback, anything else I can help you with, feel free to reach me at denise.rodriguez@projectinsight.com, and you will earn 1 PDU per webinar attended. To register your PDU, you may log into PMI as a member of PMI and go ahead and select course or training and fill out all the information below. This information will also be available in your PDU certificate. For those of you on social media, I'd like to invite you to follow, like, and subscribe to our social media channels. Our handle on Twitter is @ProjectInsight. You can also find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube for the latest MPI news. And in our Project Insight community, you'll find many recorded videos and webinars for you to watch and learn from. You can sign up for your next Agile webinar, IT, PM training, leadership, product training. They are all free of charge. So go ahead and check out our webinar calendar and register for as many as you'd like. So until then, we'd like to thank Dave for a great session today. It was very informative, and we would like to thank our audience as usual for your time, and we hope to see you guys next time.
Yeah, just thank you guys for showing up today, and I just hope that this information is helping you in the decisions that you're making within your organization. So until next time, have a great day.